Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Women of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Women of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. These are women who pave the road less traveled and inspire others to dream big. Now, today, a very special guest joining us is Manjit Minhas, and you are a household name across Canada, Manjit, and it's so exciting to have you on the show. You, of course, are born and raised in Calgary, Alberta. So I'd like to do a little bit of a plug for Calgary, Alberta, and some dynamic females from leaders that are paving the way for others out of Western Canada. You are also on the hit TV show Dragon's Den, now in its 15th season. I know we were talking back in the green room how when you and I crossed paths, just as I was launching the company, it was your first season that you're just embarking on. So you're now in 7th season with you on the show. You are, of course, the co-founder and co-owner of Minhas Brewery, Distillery, and Winery. Now, this is what not a lot of people know, and I'm hoping that just sinks in. You were 19 when you started your business.
Yes, absolutely. I just turned 41. And so, yeah, it was just over 21 years ago. I was young. I was I had just finished my first year of engineering at the University of Calgary. As you mentioned, born and raised here in Calgary, Alberta. If you are good in math and science, and trust me, I was made to be good in math and science. And I say that because I have 2 little girls. I am doing the exact same too. I think, and you're taught to believe that you have a future in the energy industry, in the oil and gas sector. And that's where my dad came from too. And so, my mom definitely had pushed and sold me that dream of that corner office, that 9 to 5, that healthcare plan. And at that point, that's kind of all I had dreamed for myself. And so, yes, I was 19 when I embarked into the spirits and then the beer business.
So let's go back. We talked that your daughter just turned 12 and she had her birthday celebration. Thank goodness it was out of COVID, so she could actually celebrate a little bit out in public. But let's talk about when you were 12, what did you want to be when you grew up? Like, they didn't even have Dragon's Den then. So you couldn't say, I want to be on the Dragon's Den show. I want to be a co-owner of a distillery. What was that for you?
Funny enough, when I was 12, I thought that I would be a doctor. I thought I'd be a pediatrician. And up until grade 11, when I actually worked at my family doctor's office, I did kind of an intern. Feel like he's the one who was in when my parents came to Calgary in 1977. He was their family doctor, was there while I was born, actually was there while my first was born. And I worked in his office in grade 11 because I really always had this idea of what it would be. And then very quickly I determined that I was squeamish with blood, that I really didn't like touching people. And I determined, okay, maybe this isn't a profession for me. And so I always tell definitely young people around me all the time that you on paper and on TV can dream about what you want to be, but until you actually spend some time shadowing somebody or asking questions of somebody who does that for a living, you don't really know, I feel like, what you're passionate about it or what you want to do. So I truly do believe that that's the same about entrepreneurship. I think many people think that they want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't know what it completely entails until they throw themselves and risk everything, including time, energy, money, relationships, you name it, into it. So I do, ever since grade 11, really truly believe in trying to go into something as eyes wide open as you can. But that is something that I thought I would be. I thought I would be a pediatrician.
Well, we're so happy that you're not a pediatrician, because certainly there's some amazing pediatricians that are around us, but you're doing an amazing job. You've built an incredible empire, and you're actually nicknamed as the Beer Baroness. Which I absolutely love, and so maybe if you can talk a little bit about that career path, because I think that's really important for not just young women, but anybody that's making that career leadership move, that's putting some thought, they maybe are going down this one road and they've invested a lot of time and energy into it. And then there's pivots along the way. I
Right.
love being able to tell the stories of women like yourself that have thought they were going to be a pediatrician, but you know, life happens. So
Right.
what was that career path for you?
Right. Yeah. And so, like a lot of my career over the last 2 decades, it has been a lot of experimentation, a lot of failures, but a lot of just getting outside of my box and just having some courage. I'm a true
Mhm.
believer in courage, and my definition of courage is that you don't get afraid. Because trust me, I get afraid a lot. It's just that you don't let fear stop you. That you push through it. That you plan. I'm a big planner. I'm a big goal setter, and you get that support around you to be able to push through that fear and have courage to try new things. I truly, as a motto in life, have always tried to say yes more than I say no. And I believe that has really been one of the reasons why I've been able to have at this stage of my life a pretty full career and had some great successes. Because if I was to write everything down as the way I think it's going to go or what I wanted to do, trust me, Dragon's Den would have been being on TV on Thursday nights would not have been one of those things on my list. And neither would be, owning and running and operating 8 facilities around the world and having thousands of employees, and being a private company. I think that
Mhm.
a lot of those things, based on what I saw around me, I would have molded. But I have been always a believer in continuous learning, but also just taking it one step at a time. And so when we started, we thought we'd be a private label spirits brand with some products for in spirits, especially that were for well stock. So your everyday rum, vodka, gin, tequila, Irish cream. Best bang for your buck, best price at the liquor store. From our perspective, we would get it co-packed. I never had dreams of owning a distillery or owning a brewery. We were essentially a sales and marketing company, and had some consultants who came up. I know what I liked, and I guess that can be maybe the engineer in me, and my brother that definitely knew what we liked, but also knew what the market was looking for. And that all came from research, came from planning, asking lots of questions, and just being pretty present wherever we were. And so while we were doing that and saw that there was some potential, especially for our Blarney's Irish Cream, that was one of the first brands actually that we came up with, which now all these years later is still the #2 Irish cream in Western Canada. And most people don't even know that we make it. So it was one of those things that when I saw the education side of my life and it kind of coming to an end, and I had a choice to pick. Do I go into entrepreneurship full time? Because at that time it was a side hustle, or in 2003, or do I pick engineering and go to the job offer that
Mhm.
I had, because I had done internships, as did my brother. He's just a year younger than me. And so we decided, listen, what we're going to do is we made a spreadsheet, as I do still for every major decision in my life, and said pros and cons. And if we were going to take entrepreneurship on full time, these are the KPIs that we need in order to decide that we're going to do this or we're going to look backwards, and do something else. And so just like, you're taught in school and where when you read books, you set parameters, and that's exactly what we did. Revenue, time, expectation, profit margins, number of stores we'd be selling in, et cetera, and number of products. And we blew that out of the park within 12 months, what we had planned for in 3 years. And we thought, okay, there's something here. And then we just kept growing and slowly moving forward based on what was comfortable for us.
Yeah.
I think that is also something that a lot of people look back on my story and a lot of people's story and think that it just went from here to here, because they haven't been there and they don't really understand what 21 years means. It's a long time. And it's a long time that's had so many bumps along the way. It's just that we're not known, or most successful entrepreneurs are not known for the bumps along the way. They don't talk about the failures enough. And I would tell you, for every brand that you see on a shelf that comes from us, whether it's our brand or whether it's a private label brand for Walmart, Costco, Sobeys, doesn't really matter who it is, there's 5 behind it that didn't make it. That went through all those steps, that got the money spent, got the branding, got the product, and just didn't make it. And so it is really, entrepreneurship is definitely one of those things of trial and error. And even you were talking about, when we started in the green room, your name change, your evolution there, even such a simple thing, right? You've had the same thing. And so you learn along the way, and that has definitely been my career path also. One of my life mottos has always been, and I get this from my parents and my grandparents, definitely, they've led a very interesting life as immigrants to this country, always has been that fear is temporary and that regret is forever. And so if I'm thinking about something and my gut is telling me it, I go for it, knowing that I put everything into it. I control as much as I can, but the outcome may or may not be what I plan, but that I truly believe in not regretting anything.
Mm. I resonate so much with that, because you have to be able to go fearlessly and have that courage. Like you said, you've got to have courage to do it. And then you've got to have actions that, your planning is super important, but taking action, right? And no regrets. And I love, you referenced this a little bit before, Manjit, and I'd like to talk about failure,
Mm.
because, you said 21 years, people don't realize that, they look at the overnight success where all of a sudden you reached, a huge success, but it took 21 years to get there. And, there's lots of failures. So if we can talk a little bit about the failure and how we can just learn to really embrace that failure. What are some of the lessons that you've learned about embracing the failure?
Yeah, I have failed in almost everything in liquor at least once. And whether it be our first entrance into the wine market, when things were like on all cylinders, we were doing really well in North America with beer and our spirits. And I thought, okay, well, the next part of it should be getting into wine, the last part of our portfolio in the liquor market. And I can tell you, we definitely did not do it as in hindsight, consciously and as slowly as we did the rest. We kind of got ahead of ourselves, as you do sometimes when you are seeing successes one after the other in a short amount of time. And well, that definitely brought us back to earth pretty quickly. Our first launch into the wine market was the definition of an epic failure, as far as a
Mm.
reputation, as far as the amount of money that was spent, the amount of product that was not sold and left over, the amount of break that it was, not only to my ego as a leader, but also all the team that was involved in that. And it is definitely something in the moment, when you see it failing, it's hard to handle then. And it's okay. I really believe it's okay to have all those emotions, sad, angry, go through that, because it is a loss of a lot of different things. But in the end of the day, I really do believe that it can make you stronger as a team. It definitely has. I'm happy to say, more than a decade later, all those great team members, those 16 members that embarked on this project with me, are still there, and we all laugh about those products now. But that took a long time. But it did tell us that we did get ahead of ourselves, and we did have all of a sudden this chip on our shoulder saying that we don't think it can go wrong, but we didn't build that foundation for that business as we did the rest. And so as time has gone on, and every new brand that we come out with, it is done definitely with all the pieces and all the boxes checkmarked that we have seen success in before. It doesn't mean that they're always successful, but it also taught me that as a leader, I do have to take responsibility. I do also have to ask what everybody else is going through and what their learnings are. You do have to let a certain amount of time pass, though, in order for you to reflect on what you can learn from a failure. But also, I truly believe that it does make you stronger. It does teach you not only humbleness, but it does teach you that there are parameters outside of your control. And I think the last year and a half of the pandemic has definitely taught all entrepreneurs that too, that you might think and be on a certain path, but there are variables that can come in that you have to be able to adjust quickly. And we also had some blind spotters on us that we didn't see some of those signs, those early warning signs that things weren't going well. And so I do think that, entrepreneurship and or just any career path, it's important to always have your eyes wide open, to always listening, always never think that you know better. But as a leader, definitely to learn to take responsibility, to ask more questions. It also taught me during that time to listen more than I talk. And that is hard for me, still is. I have to remind myself of that, especially as a leader, especially as the person who you feel like you're signing the checks, right? And so I should be able to be the one that is doing more of the talking than the listening. But I do feel that definitely changed my outlook as to that. I definitely try and do a lot more listening than I do talking, because I discovered that when as a leader, when you're talking, you are definitely repeating what you already know. In a lot of cases, you're not learning, you're not taking feedback, you're not questioning. And so that is definitely something I've learned from all the failures, not just that one.
Well, great advice. I know there's going to be people that are listening going, I have this great idea. When do you sort of abort? When do you kind of get that? Because you could have kept on and not aborted, but with your experience as a leader, how important is it to go, okay, throwing the towel in here is going to save me some grief later. Just rip the Band-Aid off and go. So what can you, I mean, what was your experience with that? Like, have you gotten better at doing that? Going, we're going to try it out. And then if we don't reach that point, we're just going to abort and maybe come back later.
Yeah, I don't think that there's for everybody, it's not the same, but I do believe that everybody should have their own metrics as to when it's time to abort. And it can be a variety of things. It can be time. It can be how much money is being spent. It can be how it's affecting not only the team members, but also the rest of the company and the other brands in the portfolio. I do believe that we all, whether it's been during the pandemic or any other time, everybody definitely should be constantly reevaluating their path and their direction and their brand. And it is something that you should take educated pivots at all the time. There is no brand that has been successful over time, and over time is anything more than 5 years, that is today where they started. And it can be slow pivots and slow maneuvers and iterations, but you do have to be constantly iterating in order to not only stay ahead of the trends, but also stay with your consumers, stay with your market, stay with your industry. And so I'm always one that we are always pushing and looking at what else we can be doing and what we should be dumping. I have a long time ago got over the fact that all the brands that I have today, whether they be, beer or spirits, that they will be here 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. I think we've been lucky in Alberta here. Our first beer brand, Mountain Crest Classic Lager, is still with us and still very successful in Alberta. But I would say that's because it was our first baby. And like I say, Blarney's Irish Cream, our first baby. And so it has a lot more power, money, energy, and also feeling from us than maybe some of the others. And I think that everything that has come after it, which is over 150 brands, they all do. And I openly and willingly say they all have an expiry date. And I do think that everybody always should, unless you own Crest toothpaste. Every brand should have an evolution. It should have, and it should have maybe not an exact expiry date, but it should not look like it did, a decade ago.
And so my next question is, I know that we've talked a lot about branding. So there's two things that I think that really most entrepreneurs need: financing and marketing. You are incredible at your marketing and building your brand. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I find that sometimes people don't invest, even, investing into, like podcasts, or, just being really visible. How important is it to build your brand as a business owner?
Yeah, so I think that that comes twofold. So when we were starting, we were very, very unique, that we put a personality, and by that I meant my brother as the one of the co-owners of the company, in all of our commercials, because we truly believed that you would never know who Mr. Molson or Mr. Labatt was back then. Why not know who Mr. or Mrs. Mountain Crest are, or Minhas? We didn't call ourselves, the name of the company was not our last name, unlike it is now. Also an evolution. And so it was something that back then we did, because we didn't have the money for the budgets or to hire actors. So we thought, great, my brother. But also we really did feel that we didn't want to take ourselves too seriously. And that was going to be the brand. It was going to be a great product, better bang for your buck, but we wanted you to have a different connection. We wanted to take ourselves lightly. We were making vodka and beer, not space rockets. It was fun. And so we truly, in the beginning and still, really have that motto about who and what we are. We like to poke fun at ourselves, but also we truly believe in being honest and transparent. And that is more and more what consumers want. But also I'm a true believer in to stand out. So back then, the number used to be about, you have to be exposed to a brand about 11 times before you went and picked it up at the store. And now that's about triple. And that's because we are bombarded with marketing everywhere now. And so you do have to get creative, and you do have to take risks.
Mm.
That is harder, I think, than ever for people to take risks with their branding, with their marketing, with putting their companies even out there. But I do believe that you have to do that. You can play it safe, and but I don't think that'll get you very far, as far as getting not only attention, but people wondering, people asking, people, doing that word of mouth and talking about it, or engaging with you in however you want them to engage with you. And so taking risks has been a big part of my life, definitely in my personal life, but in my business life and our brand. And I would say definitely educated and calculated risk, but risk nonetheless. You never really know how it's going to land. And I think that everybody should do as many focus groups as they can amongst those around them, the people that are honest with them. I also think that too many entrepreneurs have too many people around them that support everything that they do and don't give them constructive criticism or criticism at all, because our human nature is to push those people away if they don't agree with everything that we are doing or have to say, or keep championing us. So I do think that everybody on their team should have some of those people that really just push back on almost everything, because they too are representative of often a large set of your consumer base. But I think that one of the key things then in great marketing and branding is taking some risks. And it, depending on what you're selling, but most of the time, not taking yourself too seriously.
Well, great advice. And I completely agree with you about, be willing to take those risks. I mean, certainly we have a roadshow across Canada. When international borders are closed, provincial borders were closed, and people are in lockdown, I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, we're going to go across Canada. And, it's just taking those risks and, just kind of going for it, I think, is something really important. I want to touch on a little bit, because I think that you have become such an advocate and a really, not only representing your brand, but representing female entrepreneurs, Manjit, because, Minhas, if they didn't know, and if you didn't do such a brilliant job marketing and being the face of the company, along with your brother, they wouldn't know that you're women-owned, women-led, a women-led company, right? So how important is it for women and female owners to really participate in that, to be visible, to give those vendors, suppliers, customers the opportunity to support women?
Yeah. So one thing I have always told any woman who asks for my advice, the first thing I say to them is be willing not to be humble. And I let that resonate with women a lot because I find that whether it be when they're pitching, whether when they're looking for investment, and pitching means a lot of different things, right? Your brand to buyers, retailers, partners, investors. You have to, because you know what? Nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to talk about your strengths, talk about your skill set, you as a person, but also of your company and your brand and what you have to offer. And I do think that the more people can connect with your why and your story, it brings them in a lot of different ways. And I think that everybody has that. And you got into you're building your brand, working for a company because of specific reasons. And it is important to share those reasons as to why, because we all want to buy and be a part of something bigger than us. And we all want to be educated. We all want to learn, and you have to give people the opportunity to do so. And so I know it's hard for people to believe, but I was a reluctant participant to be on the front lines and to be one of the faces of our company. I wasn't for a very, very long time. I was only, in newspapers and magazines when they would write about us. But I was definitely not in any of the front-facing advertisements or media that we were putting out there. And that was conscious. I was not comfortable with it. I was, just getting married. I was, we were about to start a family, and there was a lot of personal reasons why I didn't want to be put out there. But then when Dragon's Den came calling 7.5 years ago, my first reaction was, no, thank you. I'd known almost all of the past and current dragons at that time, and I know that they all had a great experience, but I was not ready to be catapulted, not only into that chair, but to the spotlight. And so, but, over dinner that night, once by chance at my parents' house, I told my family, my parents, my husband, my brother, my sister-in-law that, hey, a producer from Dragon's Den called, and funny enough, I don't know how they called, and they got a hold of my parents' house. Maybe they did an interview years before that, and I was still living at home, and I was there in the morning, and for some reason, and probably having breakfast with my mom, and I was pregnant, and I picked up the phone, and the producer said to me, I am XYZ from Dragon's Den. And I said, are you kidding? First of all, how'd you get this number? They continued to say that they would really love me to come down to Toronto. This was a Wednesday, on the Monday, to do a screen test to be on the next season of the show, as they had 2 chairs open. And I said, well, okay, I'll get back to you, but I doubt I can make that work. And as I was telling the family, like, oh, it was great, it was about time that they called. And as far as trying to get some, more BIPOC representation, some younger representation on the show, like making it look more like Canada. And immediately my brother said to me, why wouldn't you go? Who knows if they'll ask you to, but you need to go, because you need to show not only your girls, but and your nieces and all of those little brown girls around you, but every little girl and boy in this country, that you can have a different path than the rest of those individuals up there. And they've all done great things, no doubt about it. But you can be young, you can be married, you can have a family, you can be an engineer, and then turn into what they touted me as a beer baroness. And so you can have a life that is a little bit unexpected, and there are different paths, but you can also be true to who you are. And so I reluctantly said, oh, okay, fine. And my husband said, it's okay, you can do it. Like, I'll handle our older one. And I was, like I said, just delivered my younger one then. And so I said, okay, well, I'll go. And funny enough, my assistant booked me to go, and my brother knows me so well that he knew that I would go to Toronto, but there's a good chance that I wouldn't even go to the CBC for the screen test or audition. And I show up to the airport in Calgary on Sunday morning, and my dad is at the gate. And I say, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, your brother really did feel that you probably wouldn't go because you'd probably way overthink it. I'm definitely an overthinker, and so he just wanted me to chauffeur and accompany you to Toronto." And I of course called and yelled at him, but it really was a great decision, because I would say Monday morning, as we were headed to the CBC, because he also did come to the CBC with me, he said, "Just be you." And that's why they called you. Just be you. It's okay if it doesn't work. It'll be an experience. You can tell your kids later. And I said, okay. So I went in for an hour and I was me. And then the next day they called and said, "We would love to have you on in a couple of weeks because you are not only refreshing, but you are you. And we want you to bring that you to us every single day for a month." And I thought, oh my God, okay, now I'm going to have to, manage some things, but it really has been an amazing experience, because I do feel that a lot of women, especially in this country, can have felt that you can be multiple things. You don't need to fit into a box. I don't need to be that, young Indian engineer, or that I'm only an entrepreneur. I can love fashion. I can, hate this, and I can love this, and I can be unexpected, and I can give my true opinions. Sometimes they can be tough, and I can have a soft side too. Like, we are all human and we're all very dynamic. And I think that is one of the reasons why I keep going back every year, because I have so many people that write to me that say, "Thank you for showing us that there can be multiple sides, and I can get angry, and I can be sad, and I can be happy, and I can be excited." All of those things. And it's okay to be that.
Well, you're preaching to the choir, Manjit, because it's like stepping into the spotlight is the most uncomfortable thing for
Right.
women. And
Yes.
I love that we as leaders are able to really say, you know what? It's never easy. It's never
No.
easy, but go out onto that stage and take that opportunity. It would be the best thing, the most uncomfortable thing that you're ever going to do. But the growth that you do and what it's going to do for your own self-esteem and paving the way for other girls is so important. So I guess my next question is, why is celebrating the accomplishments of women so important?
So important. And this has been a realization of mine, I would say, very newly. I have not been good over the last 2 decades of patting myself on the back ever. I've always been one that just kept moving forward, being, okay, great, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. I've got this drive that is great, but also sometimes a total personality flaw sometimes, that I definitely don't sit back and say, hey, we did that. Good job. Or you took that risk and it paid off, or you learned something from it. It wasn't what you expected, or you made some new friends, or you made an investment in yourself or in others. Because I'm a true believer in lifting while you're climbing, because I am definitely still climbing. And so I would say that I have come to the realization later in life, that it is important to celebrate not only your own accomplishments, but those around you, and to take time to say, hey, good job. And I don't think that we as a society do that enough. It's not something that is really ever talked about. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that it is something that definitely needs to be yelled from the rooftops, because the only way that we can encourage and inspire others to do it is to talk about what we've been able to accomplish and let others dream along with us, and reach out for help to say, hey, there's somebody that maybe has done something like I'm looking to do, and or it might not be that scary. And so I do think that we should celebrate more than we do, even for the little things, but definitely for the big things. And I think that over time has I get this question a lot, that how do you have so much confidence? And I think that it is something that is the same thing, constant, and I'm always building on. But celebrating is something that we do as a company more, and I do as an individual more than I've ever done the last 5 years, than I've ever done the 15, 16 years before that. And I look back and I say, why didn't I keep the millionth can of beer? Why didn't we have a party this time? Why didn't what? Why? And I think that I don't have the answer, but I do kick myself to sometimes say that we should have slowed down for a minute and celebrated.
Well, that's great advice. So I have to ask you now, so how do you celebrate those milestones now?
Yeah, sometimes, they're private, sometimes they're public. But we definitely, I feel just like anything, we love throwing parties, and we love talking, and we, just like anything and everybody else, love sharing and gifting and just doing things and having experiences. More and more, we're moving to just having experiences together as a family, as a team, as an organization, in order to mark those milestones. So when you look back, you can say, hey, we went on this great trip, or we had this great weekend together where we did some wild and crazy things and played some new games, or just did something that really made us think about where we have been and how we have grown together. And so every celebration is different, but there is a conscious time for celebration now.
So you mentioned that you're not finished climbing, which I love. You're just embarking in the 40s. And, if we look at Hazel McKellen, who's 100,
Yeah.
we have a lot of years left to do some incredible work. So, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, Manjit?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I will tell you, I have plans, as I always do. I always set 12-month plans, so 1 year plans, 3 years and 5 years for the company and for myself. But I can tell you, they never look like what I planned, and that's the great thing about living a life. And so those I keep to myself, because I do think that we do have to keep some things to ourselves. I'm pretty much an open book on everything else. But to be honest, completely honest, I don't know. And
So
that's
I
a
The unknown is the unknown, because guess what? I always keep, I don't know if you're like this too, where you have a strict little schedule, but then there's always time for flexibility. I build that in so that there's an opportunity that I can participate in. And so the flexibility of the unknown opens up the doors for the opportunities to exist. Do you agree?
Yes, so I leave time. I have a very tight, like I'm a scheduled person, and I revel in schedule. But what I do too is I always leave thinking time. And because I truly believe that you can't keep moving forward and doing a variety of things. I wear a variety of hats. I sit on a lot of boards, public, private, charitable. I have a lot of investments, 31 investments. I have my own companies. And so I do believe that you can keep going, but without having that thinking time to let things ruminate, and to kind of plan things out in your head, or to just think of them in a different way, it's really hard to execute, and to be creative and innovative, and even to listen to your gut if don't have that quiet a thinking time. And sometimes in that thinking time, I'm taking on new questions, challenges, talking to new people, or just getting outside of what my everyday is. And so I do completely agree with that if you don't leave some time in your life for those things, it's really hard to take on new challenges.
Awesome. And so I'm going to go back to a little bit and talk about the support network, because
Mhm.
of course, busy life, busy family, entrepreneur, want to take on the world, build the empire, take on those extra opportunities. How important is it, number one, to have a support network? And I want to talk about male allyship in this, and really how the role that men play to champion as our allies and supporters.
Well, first and foremost, to raise a family, as you know, and to raise a company, it takes a village. Nobody does it on their own. No, nobody. And I think that that is something that anybody who is finding some challenges or wanting to start a business, or getting over those hurdles, needs to understand that nobody does it all on their own. I have a great support network at home and at the office, and it has evolved over the years. And that support team is a combination of friends, definitely on the home, of family, of paid help, and on the business front also, of consultants, of team members, and it's all grown. But one thing that has been constant on both sides is mentors. I'm a true believer in the power of mentorship. I truly believe we all have to have people around us that support us, that believe in us, and that guide us. That I truly believe that they have to be there, because I believe that mentoring is a brain to pick often, is definitely an ear to listen to us, but a push in the right direction when needed. I do think that the mentors that I've had in my life don't know how much value that they have brought to my life. They have evolved and changed. Some of them have turned into fabulous friends and very close friends. Some have gone, their own path, and we speak maybe once or twice a year. But as my needs have changed in my personal life and my business life, they have also changed. And I think a grave misconception about mentorship is that those people that are mentors in your life have to stay in that position with you as you evolve and change. And I don't think that is fair. I think that that mentors, because your needs change, so should they. I think that we always should have multiple people in our life that we have supporting us. And I truly believe in giving back. So about 11 years ago, through a formal mentorship program, I got involved in mentorship, and I thought to myself, what do I have to offer somebody? Are you kidding? And funny enough, I have gotten so much out of being a mentor, as much as I have had having mentors, because I think in a lot of different ways, you sit down and think about why you've done what you, and the decisions that you've made. You also discover that you know a lot more people, and in often cases, know a lot more than you give yourself credit for. Dragon's Den has definitely taught me that too, because we're in a bubble that whole hour, that every pitch that we listen to, we're not allowed to talk to anybody. You know what you know, and it's all just you. No advisors, no finance, no legal team, nobody. And so, and I find the same thing with mentorship. You can't call a friend when you're talking to somebody. And so it's really truly what you believe, and talking about your truths and your path. And so I think that everybody should have mentors, whether they be formal or whether they just be people that you call on, or friends or family that is around you, or colleagues. And so support a big portion of my journey, and also my success.
And how about those support hers? You're a co-founder with your brother, of course. And I think that is incredible that, you're able to balance that family, but also that business relationship. And, just stepping into that role where men and women are working together. How important is that?
Very. I also think that it's important to acknowledge the fact that we have different skill sets. We have different talents. We often approach things differently. Sometimes me more aggressively, sometimes him, and that's okay. And I think that it's important that we acknowledge that two individuals, regardless of their gender, can and will approach things differently. But you understand each other, that you communicate as often as possible, but that you do need to be an ally to both. Me to him and him to me. And there have been definitely many men along the way that, for example, that have brought me to the tables for very important conversations, whether it be at different levels of government, whether it be within corporate organizations, whether it be in philanthropic organizations, to say, come to the table. Tell us your experiences. Give us what you can, and take what you can from this table also. But I do think that it is important to understand that we do need to have men always not only a part of our conversations, but also understanding the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because if we do that amongst just us women in a bubble, very hard, impossible, actually, I would say, to move the dial.
Very great. I love that. Of course, I'm a big champion of support hers and men and women. And you know, that conversation still needs to be done and talked about more and more. So thank you for really shining a positive light on that. I hope that our listeners are enjoying that. So before we wrap up, Manjit, I mean, I could talk to you all day long. There's a couple questions that I have burning. So your self-care non-negotiable, this is a little lighter, your self-care non-negotiable item that you do every single day.
Interesting. So I would say it is having even a small 15 minutes to myself to have a cup of coffee, no matter where I am in the world or, even at home, to find a little spot to just have 15 minutes to myself before the chaos of any day starts. And so how I do that is I wake up earlier than everybody else, and that seems to be getting earlier and earlier. Yeah. But it is something that I do feel that quiet time with just me before kids, spouse, parents, team members, everything comes my way till I go to sleep. And so I'd say at 15 minutes is all it takes. And then at the end of my day, the last thing I do at the end of my day, also, no matter where I am, what I'm doing, is I take 30 minutes and I turn on the TV, whether it's in my own home or a hotel room, and I watch something. And I don't watch the news because that can be a little bit too heavy, but I watch just something, and it's the way for me to just kind of decompress. So 15 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes before I go to bed.
Very, very good routines. And you can do it anywhere, hotel room, at home. And it is hard to sneak a little bit of your own slice of time, isn't it, during the day? But getting it out of the way first thing is really fantastic. So thank you for sharing. Now, one of my last questions is, it wouldn't be a Woman of Inspiration podcast without asking you what your definition of a woman of inspiration is, Manjit.
Oh, wow. I think a woman of inspiration is just somebody who is really true to themselves, is following their dreams and passions and understanding that they can change, but really listening to themselves and their gut, and not believing in all the myths, such as we have to burn ourselves out, we have to do everything for others, we have to be and look our best all the time and just be the perfect mom, perfect wife, perfect entrepreneur. That we are human, and that looks different for everybody. And so I truly believe that a woman inspiration is just true to who she is, and really doesn't worry about what the rest of the world thinks about who she is and what she's doing.
Beautifully said. I know there's women of inspiration that we rub shoulders with every day, and I hope that the ripple effect, that they know how important they are. So, Manjit, it was been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I love so much energy, and I'm trying not to get distracted with all the little fishes in the background. But it is really great to have you. We're so excited to have you part of the 100 Women of Inspiration book, of course, that represents the voices of leaders from diverse industries. And so we look forward to having you on the roadshow. And any last words for our listeners or viewers today?
You know what? It would be just keep going. Whatever you're doing, keep going. Don't give up on whatever your dreams are, and whatever your passions are. Keep going.
Awesome. And where can we learn more about you? Of course, you are, again, you're in 5 different provinces, 47 states throughout the US, and in 16 countries. OMG. You're unstoppable. So if anybody wants to find out more about your brand, if they don't already know about it, how can they do so?
I'm on all social media platforms except TikTok. And so they can look up Manjit Minhas. They can go to manjitminhas.com, Minhas Brewery, multiple different places on social media. You can go to your local liquor store and look for Ardingstall's Gin, which is our newest baby, and many other brands that bear our name, and some that don't. But if you do a bit of Googling and research, you will find them from everywhere, from Trader Joe's to Sobeys.
Well, and I truly believe in empowering and supporting those women-owned businesses. So I'm going to say, go and buy because it is really important to support women-owned, women-led. So thank you, Manjit, for all of your words of wisdom. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. And if you loved this episode, I really encourage you to share the word. There's some woman that is going to be listening, or some man that will help him understand how they can support her. So thank you so much for joining us on the Woman of Inspiration podcast, Manjit.
Thanks, Monica.